September 22nd, 1942, 4:17 in the morning, Richmond, California shipyard number 2. The impossible had become routine. The encrypted telegram crackled through the shortwave radio in the basement of the German consulate in San Francisco, each dot and dash carrying intelligence that would shatter every assumption of Nazi naval warfare. Oberfuhrer Heinrich Kramer, head of Abwehr Maritime Intelligence for the Pacific Coast, stared at the message his trembling hands had just decoded, coffee growing cold in his porcelain cup as fog rolled in from San Francisco Bay. Unmöglich, he whispered to the empty room. Impossible. The report came from Agent Seagull, Wolfgang Steinberg, a naturalized American citizen who had returned to his homeland service when war erupted across the Atlantic. Steinberg worked as a purchasing agent for a steel company, providing perfect cover for observing American shipyard operations. His intelligence network stretched from San Diego to Seattle, a web of German Americans, sympathizers, and hired observers who fed information back to the Reich. According to Steinberg's latest report, Henry Kaiser's Richmond shipyard number 2 had launched the SS Robert E. Peary in 4 days, 14 hours, and 29 minutes. A complete Liberty ship, 10,000 tons displacement, 441 feet long, capable of carrying 10,000 tons of cargo across the Atlantic to supply Britain's war effort. Kramer had served in the Imperial Navy during the Great War. He understood shipbuilding. The fastest German shipyard required 18 months to complete a merchant vessel of comparable size. The British, with their centuries of maritime expertise, needed 12 months minimum. Yet here, in this fog-shrouded California port, Americans claimed to have built an ocean-going freighter in less than 5 days. The implications were staggering. If accurate, American shipbuilding capacity exceeded every German calculation by orders of magnitude. Admiral Dönitz's entire U-boat strategy was predicated on sinking merchant vessels faster than the Allies could replace them. The mathematics were simple. Sink more tonnage than they could build, and Britain would starve. Kramer walked to his wall map, marking another red pin at Richmond. 17 pins now dotted the American coastline, each representing a shipyard reporting impossible production rates. Portland, Oregon, 14 days average per Liberty ship. Bethlehem Steel's Baltimore Yard, 16 days. Todd Shipyard in Maine, 19 days. The patterns were consistent, the sources independent, the intelligence verified through multiple channels. The telephone rang, startling him from his calculations. Berlin was calling. Kramer here. Heinrich, this is Admiral Canaris. The voice of Germany's intelligence chief carried across the Atlantic via scrambled telephone connection. I've received your reports about American shipbuilding. Dönitz has seen them. He's requesting immediate clarification. Kramer chose his words carefully. Wilhelm Canaris had survived 2 wars by understanding when to speak truth and when to remain silent. Herr Admiral, I've triple verified the intelligence. 17 independent sources, photographic evidence, shipping manifests intercepted through our Mexican networks. The Americans are launching merchant vessels at rates we considered impossible. Heinrich, you're telling me that Henry Kaiser, an American businessman who built dams and highways, has revolutionized shipbuilding in 18 months. Herr Admiral, that's exactly what I'm telling you. The silence stretched across the connection. Finally, Canaris spoke. Prepare a complete briefing. Include all source material, photographs, technical specifications. I'll present this to the Führer personally. Sir, there's something else. Kaiser's yards employ women, Negroes, workers over 60. They've trained housewives to weld hull plates. Yesterday's secretary is today's shipfitter. The workforce demographics alone violate every assumption of our racial theory. Another pause. Heinrich, be very careful how you phrase that in your report. At Richmond Shipyard number 2, the night shift was ending as dawn broke over San Francisco Bay. Louise Mitchell, a former department store clerk from Arkansas, shut down her welding equipment and removed her protective mask. She had been welding Liberty ship hull plates for 6 months, working alongside former farmers, teachers, and domestic workers. None of them had seen the inside of a shipyard before Pearl Harbor. What Louise and her colleagues didn't know was that their routine productivity was destroying German naval strategy 3,000 miles away. In his Berlin headquarters, Admiral Karl Dönitz studied Kramer's intelligence reports with growing frustration. The numbers simply didn't compute. His staff had calculated that successful U-boat operations required sinking Allied merchant tonnage faster than replacement vessels could be launched. Intelligence suggested the Americans were launching not just faster than projected, but faster than physically possible. "Get me technical assessment," Dönitz ordered his aide-de-camp. "I want our best naval architects to review these American claims. Something is wrong with this intelligence." What neither Dönitz nor his technical experts understood was that Henry Kaiser had fundamentally reimagined shipbuilding. Traditional methods involved constructing vessels plate by plate, rivet by rivet, in dry docks that tied up facilities for months. Kaiser had broken Liberty ships into prefabricated sections, built simultaneously in different locations, then assembled rapidly using revolutionary welding techniques. The German naval establishment, trained in Prussian precision and traditional craftsmanship, couldn't comprehend industrial mass production applied to complex ocean vessels. Their worldview simply had no framework for understanding how democracy's chaotic energy could outproduce authoritarian efficiency. By October 1942, German intelligence had documented American Liberty ship production at 18 separate shipyards. The mathematical reality was becoming undeniable. American merchant vessel production was approaching 1 ship per day nationally, with individual yards achieving launches every 72 hours. Reality was about to collide with ideology, and the Third Reich's naval strategy hung in the balance. Henry Kaiser stood in the driving rain at Richmond Shipyard No. 2, watching welders work through the night under blazing arc lights that turned the fog into an ethereal theatre of industrial warfare. The former highway contractor had never built a ship before 1941, yet by October 1942, his revolutionary methods were producing Liberty ships faster than German naval architects believed physically possible. What German intelligence couldn't fathom was that Kaiser had torn apart 3 centuries of shipbuilding tradition and reassembled it according to American mass production principles. Where European yards built ships like medieval cathedrals, one careful stone at a time, Kaiser built them like automobiles, with interchangeable parts manufactured simultaneously in different locations. The prefabrication revolution began during Kaiser's 1941 visit to Todd Shipyard in Maine, where he watched workers spend weeks riveting individual plates to ship frames. "This is insane," Kaiser had muttered, watching skilled craftsmen perform repetitive tasks that machines could accomplish faster. "We're building ships like it's 1840, not 1940. Kaiser's solution was radical. Break Liberty ships into massive prefabricated sections built in parallel production lines, then assemble them rapidly using continuous welding instead of traditional riveting. Hull sections, superstructures, and engine compartments could be manufactured simultaneously in separate facilities, converging at the final assembly dock. German agent Wolfgang Steinberg, posing as a steel purchasing representative, gained access to Kaiser's Richmond facility in September 1942. His report to Berlin read like science fiction to naval officers trained in traditional methods. "The Americans have divided Liberty ship construction into 8 major sections," Steinberg reported. Bow section, 3 hull sections, stern section, superstructure, engine room, and cargo holds. Each section is built by specialized teams working around the clock in separate locations. What shocked Steinberg most was the workforce transformation. Traditional shipbuilding required years of apprenticeship to master skills passed down through generations. Kaiser's methods reduced complex shipbuilding to hundreds of specific, teachable tasks that could be mastered in weeks rather than years. They employ housewives as welders, Steinberg wrote, his disbelief evident. Former department store clerks install electrical systems. Retired farmers operate massive cranes. Women comprise 37% of the workforce. Many workers are over 60. By Nazi racial theory, this workforce should produce chaos, not record-breaking ships. The welding revolution was equally incomprehensible to German naval experts. European shipyards used riveting, a time-consuming process requiring skilled craftsmen to heat rivets, position them precisely, and hammer them into place. Each Liberty ship required over 300,000 rivets, installed one at a time. Kaiser's yards used continuous welding, creating joints stronger than riveted connections while requiring a fraction of the time and skill. Electric arc welding could be taught to inexperienced workers in days, not months. Where riveting required 3-man teams, welding required one operator. Mary Josephine Farley, a former telephone operator from San Francisco, learned welding in 6 days at Kaiser's training facility. Within 3 weeks, she was welding hull sections for Liberty ships bound for Murmansk. They told us every weld we made brought our boys home faster, Farley recalled. We weren't just welding steel, we were welding hope. German technical intelligence struggled to explain American welding productivity. Captain Ernst Kranke, German naval attaché in Stockholm, obtained Swedish engineering reports confirming Kaiser's innovations. American welders achieve continuous seam rates of 18 inches per minute. Kranke reported to Berlin, "Our best shipyard welders average 6 inches per minute." The assembly line revolution extended beyond prefabrication. Kaiser arranged his shipyards like automobile factories, with ships moving through construction stages on predetermined schedules. Raw materials flowed into the facility at calculated rates. Component sections converged at assembly points with clockwork timing. The entire facility operates like a watch mechanism, reported Juan Mendez, a Spanish diplomat who toured Richmond in October 1942. Steel arrives by rail schedule, is formed into sections according to precise timing, and assembled into completed vessels with mathematical predictability. Kaiser's workforce management revolutionized American industry. Instead of training complete shipbuilders through long apprenticeships, Kaiser created specialized training programs teaching narrow skills quickly. Hull welders, electrical installers, pipe fitters, and paint specialists could be trained in weeks rather than years. "We don't need shipbuilders," Kaiser explained to skeptical maritime unions. "We need people who can perform specific tasks repeatedly and accurately. A welder doesn't need to understand naval architecture. She needs to create perfect seams." The psychological impact on German intelligence was devastating. Agent Steinberg's final report captured the existential crisis facing Nazi ideology. They achieve the impossible through methods our theory declares inferior. Democratic chaos produces authoritarian order. Women and minorities outproduce German master craftsmen. Kaiser's revolution was mathematical proof that democracy worked, that diversity strengthened rather than weakened, that freedom produced rather than hindered. German spies counted every rivet, timed every weld, photographed every launch. The evidence was overwhelming and completely incompatible with Nazi beliefs. By November 1942, Kaiser's yards were launching Liberty ships every 72 hours on average. German naval strategy, built on assumptions of American industrial weakness, was crumbling under mathematical reality. The intelligence flowed into Berlin through channels that would have impressed even the most paranoid Gestapo officer. From neutral Sweden, Spanish diplomats reported identical findings. From Switzerland, Portuguese businessmen confirmed the impossible production rates. From Argentina, Japanese naval attachés provided independent verification. Every source told the same story. American shipyards were launching Liberty ships faster than German submarines could sink them. Major Friedrich Busch, head of Abwehr Section 3, F Maritime Intelligence, spread the reports across his oak desk in the grey November light, filtering through Berlin's bomb-damaged windows. 17 separate intelligence networks had provided confirmation of American Liberty ship production rates. The sources were independent, the methods varied, the conclusions identical. From Agent Condor in Buenos Aires came shipping manifests intercepted through Argentine port authorities. Liberty ships were arriving in South American ports with hull numbers indicating production rates exceeding one vessel every 3 days at individual American shipyards. The mathematics were simple. If ships numbered consecutively were launched days apart rather than months, American production exceeded every German estimate. Swedish engineer Lars Eriksson, working under contract for Göteborg shipyard, had toured Kaiser's Richmond facility in October 1942. His technical report, obtained through German intelligence contacts in Stockholm, provided devastating confirmation of American capabilities. The Richmond facility operates 3 shifts continuously, Eriksson reported. I observed 16 Liberty ships in various stages of construction simultaneously. Completed vessels were launched every 72 hours during my 10-day visit. The Americans have achieved industrial efficiency that surpasses European understanding. Spanish Colonel José Hungría, military attaché in Washington, maintained careful neutrality while secretly providing intelligence to both German and British contacts. His reports to Madrid were intercepted by German signals intelligence and forwarded to Berlin within hours. American shipyard capacity defies rational analysis. Hungría reported in November 1942. Kaiser Industries alone operates facilities in California, Oregon, and Washington, producing Liberty ships at rates exceeding German total merchant vessel production. The photographic evidence was most damning. Agent Steinberg had obtained aerial photographs of Kaiser's Richmond yard through contacts in the Swedish diplomatic corps. German photo analysts spent days examining the images with magnifying glasses, counting vessels, measuring distances, calculating production schedules. 47 Liberty ships, visible at various construction stages, reported photo analyst Captain Heinrich Weber. Spacing indicates assembly line production with vessels moving through predetermined construction phases. Launchways occupied continuously. Parking facilities indicate workforce exceeding 30,000 at this facility alone. Portuguese businessman Antonio Salazar Jr., son of the Portuguese dictator, toured American West Coast facilities in November 1942 as part of trade negotiations. His private observations, obtained through German intelligence penetration of Portuguese diplomatic communications, confirmed the impossible. The Americans have industrialized shipbuilding, Salazar reported to Lisbon. What required 18 months in European yards requires 18 days in American facilities. They produce merchant vessels like automobiles, with standardized components and assembly line efficiency. Japanese naval intelligence provided perhaps the most credible verification. Commander Takeshi Naito, Japanese naval attaché in Mexico City, maintained extensive contacts with American business representatives traveling through neutral Mexico. His coded transmissions to Tokyo, intercepted by German signals intelligence, painted a picture of American industrial capacity that challenged every assumption of Axis strategic planning. Individual American shipyards outproduce entire Japanese merchant marine construction, Naito reported. Kaiser Industries represents industrial revolution in maritime construction. By December 1942, German intelligence possessed confirmation from 23 independent sources across 6 countries. The evidence was overwhelming, consistent, and completely incompatible with German strategic assumptions. American Liberty ship production was not propaganda but mathematical reality. Major Bush prepared his final assessment for Admiral Canaris with growing dread. The implications were catastrophic for German naval strategy. If American merchant vessel production exceeded German U-boat sinking capacity, the Battle of the Atlantic was already lost. The intelligence was perfect. The conclusions were undeniable. The response would be predictably disastrous. Agent Wolfgang Steinberg stood in the Richmond shipyard cafeteria at 6:30 in the morning, surrounded by a workforce that challenged every assumption of Nazi racial theory. Around him, black welders discussed technical specifications with white supervisors. Mexican-American crane operators shared coffee with Swedish immigrants. Women in their 60s operated machinery requiring precision that German doctrine claimed impossible for inferior races and weaker sexes. What Steinberg witnessed was democracy's industrial revolution in human form. The woman at the next table, Rosa Martinez, had been cleaning houses in Los Angeles 6 months earlier. Now, she supervised electrical installation teams building Liberty ships bound for the Soviet Union. Her crews included former teachers, domestic workers, and retired farmers, all trained in specialized tasks within weeks rather than years. "They don't understand that we're fighting for our families," Martinez explained to a Swedish journalist, unaware that the German agent 3 tables away was memorizing every word. "My son is in the Pacific. Every ship we build brings him home faster. We work double shifts because we want to, not because someone forces us." The psychological impact on German observers was devastating. Steinberg had been raised believing that racial mixing created chaos, that women were unsuited for technical work, that democracy bred inefficiency. Yet here, he watched inferior races and weaker sexes outproduce the German master race by orders of magnitude. Louise Washington, a black woman from Alabama, operated a 100-ton crane with precision that amazed German technical observers. She had learned crane operation in 3 weeks, moving massive ship sections with mathematical accuracy. Her crew included white women, Hispanic men, and elderly workers that Nazi theory classified as useless mouths. "I never thought I'd be building ships," Washington told a visiting reporter. "But when they asked if I could learn, I said yes. My husband's in the Navy. These ships carry supplies to keep our boys alive." German intelligence struggled to explain how American workforce diversity created unprecedented efficiency rather than chaos. Captain Ernst Kranke obtained detailed workforce demographic reports through Swedish industrial contacts. The statistics were incomprehensible to German racial theorists. Kaiser's Richmond facility employed 42,000 workers, 37% women, 23% minorities, 18% over age 55, 12% disabled veterans. By Nazi standards, this workforce should have produced industrial disaster. Instead, it produced Liberty ships faster than any shipyard in history. The training revolution was equally impossible to explain. Traditional German apprenticeships required 3 to 5 years to produce skilled shipbuilders. Kaiser's training programs produced specialized workers in weeks. Former housewives learned welding in 6 days. Retired teachers became ship electricians in 2 weeks. Maria Gonzalez, a farm worker's daughter from Fresno, supervised paint crews applying protective coatings to Liberty ship hulls. She had learned paint chemistry, application techniques, and quality control procedures in 12 days of intensive training. The democratic workplace culture shocked German observers accustomed to authoritarian hierarchies. American workers suggested improvements to production processes. Supervisors implemented worker recommendations. Efficiency increased through collaboration rather than command. Betty Johnson, a former telephone operator, had developed a new welding technique that reduced hull construction time by 8%. Her innovation was adopted throughout Kaiser's shipyards, saving thousands of man-hours monthly. In Germany, such suggestions from workers would have been ignored. The childcare revolution was equally incomprehensible to German observers. Kaiser had built on-site daycare facilities staffed by qualified teachers, allowing mothers to work full shifts while their children received professional care. German doctrine held that working mothers abandoned their children to communist indoctrination. Instead, American children played in well-equipped facilities while their mothers built ships to defeat fascism. The childcare centers included medical facilities, educational programs, and nutritional services superior to what most German children received during wartime rationing. Helen Rodriguez, a single mother from San Antonio, worked night shifts as a hull welder while her 2 children attended Kaiser's childcare center. "They're safer here than at home," Rodriguez explained. "Better food, better teachers, better medical care." The psychological reports German agents filed were filled with existential confusion. Everything they had been taught about racial superiority, gender roles, and social organization was being disproven by mathematical reality. Democracy wasn't creating chaos, but unprecedented productivity. Agent Steinberg's final report captured the crisis facing Nazi ideology. American shipyard workers achieve production rates that exceed German theoretical maximums using workforce demographics our doctrine considers impossible. Either our intelligence is fundamentally flawed, or our entire worldview requires complete revision. The human element of American industrial capacity was destroying German assumptions as effectively as any military campaign. Democracy was proving its superiority one rivet at a time. In the basement of German naval headquarters in Berlin, Captain Hermann Weiss stared at calculations that defied every assumption of naval warfare. The numbers spread across his desk told a story of American industrial capacity that challenged the mathematical foundations of German strategic planning. If accurate, these figures meant the Third Reich had already lost the Battle of the Atlantic before it truly began. Weiss commanded Section 4B, responsible for analyzing enemy shipping capacity and U-boat effectiveness ratios. His team of naval architects, statisticians, and intelligence analysts had spent 3 months verifying American Liberty ship production claims. Every calculation led to the same impossible conclusion: American merchant vessel construction exceeded German submarine warfare capacity by orders of magnitude. The basic mathematics were terrifying in their simplicity. German U-boats, operating at peak efficiency, could sink approximately 60 merchant vessels monthly across all operational theaters. American shipyards, according to confirmed intelligence, were launching Liberty ships at rates approaching 1 vessel every 18 hours nationally by December 1942. 60 ships sunk per month versus 50 ships launched per month equals German victory, Weiss muttered to his aide, Lieutenant Klaus Weber. 60 ships sunk per month versus 180 ships launched per month equals German catastrophe. The resource calculations were equally devastating. Each Liberty ship required approximately 1,800 tons of steel, 800 tons of iron, and 200 tons of aluminum. American monthly consumption of these materials for Liberty ship production alone exceeded total German production across all military applications. Weber had obtained detailed intelligence reports from neutral Swedish steel manufacturers. The comparisons were mathematically precise and strategically hopeless. American steel allocation to Liberty ships monthly equals 1.7 million tons. Weber reported, total German steel production monthly equals 1.2 million tons across all military applications. The manpower calculations defied comprehension. Kaiser Industries alone employed more workers building Liberty ships than Germany employed building all merchant vessels, submarines, and naval surface ships combined. American shipyard employment had increased from 47,000 workers in 1939 to over 600,000 by 1942. They're employing more people to build cargo ships than we employ to build our entire navy, Weiss observed grimly. The productivity comparisons revealed the mathematical impossibility of German naval strategy. Traditional German shipbuilding required approximately 36,000 man-hours to complete a merchant vessel equivalent to a Liberty ship. American Liberty ship construction averaged 14,000 man-hours per vessel and was declining monthly through improved efficiency. Lieutenant Friedrich Haas, the section's leading statistical analyst, had calculated time-to-replacement ratios that painted a picture of inevitable defeat. At current production rates, Americans replace merchant tonnage sunk by U-boats within 72 hours. Haas reported, German U-boat construction requires 18 months per vessel. The economic analysis was equally hopeless. Each German U-boat cost approximately 4 million Reichsmarks to build and equip. Each Liberty ship cost American taxpayers approximately $750,000, equivalent to roughly 3 million Reichsmarks. American industrial capacity allowed them to build merchant vessels nearly as cheaply as Germany built submarines. They're building cargo ships faster and cheaper than we're building the weapons designed to sink them, Weiss concluded with growing despair. This violates every principle of naval economics we've studied for decades. The geographic distribution of American shipbuilding made U-boat interdiction nearly impossible. Liberty ships were being built on both American coasts, in Great Lakes shipyards, and along inland rivers. Even if German submarines controlled the Atlantic completely, Americans could continue building ships in locations German naval forces could never reach. Captain Weiss prepared his final analysis for Admiral Dönitz with the grim certainty of mathematical inevitability. American Liberty ship production had transformed the Battle of the Atlantic from a contest of naval skill into a simple equation of industrial capacity. Germany was producing submarines to fight the last war, while America was building the merchant fleet that would win the next one. Mathematics had defeated strategy, and industrial democracy had overwhelmed military authoritarianism. The war was lost in the spreadsheets before it was lost on the seas. The oak doors of the Reich Chancellery conference room closed with a finality that Admiral Karl Dönitz would remember for the rest of his life. January 15th, 1943, 3:17 in the afternoon. Outside, Berlin shivered under grey winter skies, while inside, the most powerful men in Nazi Germany gathered to confront intelligence that would shatter their worldview. Dönitz clutched the leather portfolio containing Captain Weiss's statistical analysis, Major Bush's intelligence compilation, and photographic evidence from 17 independent sources. The documents represented 3 months of meticulous verification and mathematical calculation. The evidence was irrefutable. American Liberty ship production exceeded German strategic assumptions by orders of magnitude. Hitler sat at the head of the table, flanked by Heinrich Himmler, Hermann Göring, and Joseph Goebbels. General Wilhelm Keitel and General Alfred Jodl represented the military leadership. Martin Bormann lurked in the shadows, taking notes that would determine who lived and who died. Mein Führer, Dönitz began carefully. I must present intelligence regarding American merchant vessel production that requires immediate strategic reassessment. Hitler's pale blue eyes fixed on the admiral with intensity that had mesmerized millions and terrified thousands. Proceed, Admiral, but remember that defeatist reports are acts of treason. Dönitz opened his portfolio and spread aerial photographs across the polished table. These images show Kaiser Industries' Richmond shipyard in California. Photographic analysis confirms 16 Liberty ships under simultaneous construction, with completed vessels launching every 72 hours. Göring, weighing over 300 pounds, leaned forward to examine the photographs. Admiral, these are obviously American propaganda photographs. Wooden mock-ups designed to deceive our intelligence services. Herr Reichsmarschall, we obtained these images through Swedish diplomatic channels. Our photo analysts confirm their authenticity. We have corroborating intelligence from Spanish, Portuguese, Argentine, and Japanese sources, all reporting identical production rates. Hitler studied the photographs with growing irritation. Admiral Dönitz, you're telling me that Henry Kaiser, an American highway contractor, has revolutionized shipbuilding in 2 years? Mein Führer, that is exactly what the evidence indicates. Impossible. Hitler's voice carried the authority that had launched 1,000 panzer divisions. The Americans entered this war in December 1941. They cannot have achieved such production in such time. Dönitz pulled out the statistical analysis. Mein Führer, German U-boats, operating at maximum efficiency, sink approximately 60 Allied merchant vessels monthly. American shipyards are launching Liberty ships at rates exceeding 150 vessels monthly. Himmler, his steel-rimmed glasses reflecting the conference room lights, spoke with characteristic precision. Admiral, you're suggesting that our entire U-boat strategy is mathematically impossible? Herr Reichsführer, the mathematics are clear. We cannot sink merchant vessels faster than the Americans can replace them. Goering slammed his jeweled hand on the table. Admiral, I understand industrial capacity. The Americans cannot produce complex military equipment like sausages. Herr Reichsmarschall, American Liberty ship construction averages 14,000 man-hours per vessel, compared to 36,000 man-hours for equivalent German construction. They have achieved unprecedented efficiency. Goebbels studied the intelligence reports with calculating precision. Admiral, accepting these figures means accepting that our racial theories are wrong, that democracy produces strength rather than weakness, that American mongrel populations outproduce German master craftsmen. Herr Reichsminister, I present facts, not interpretations. American production capacity exceeds our estimates by factors of 10 to 20. Hitler rose from his chair, pacing to the windows overlooking Berlin's government district. Recent Allied bombing had shattered windows throughout the city. Admiral Dönitz, Hitler said without turning around, you're asking me to believe that Ford Motor Company has defeated the German Navy through assembly line techniques. Mein Führer, I'm asking you to consider strategic alternatives based on mathematical reality. Hitler spun around, his face flushed with rage. Mathematical reality? Admiral, we are fighting for the survival of the German race. Mathematics do not determine the outcome of such struggles. Will determines victory. The German spirit cannot be defeated by American statistics. Dönitz felt the familiar chill of contradicting the Führer's worldview. Around the table, he watched powerful men calculate their responses. Agree with Hitler and survive the meeting, or present uncomfortable truths and risk execution. Mein Führer, our U-boat crews are reporting increasing numbers of enemy vessels, convoy sizes that exceed previous intelligence estimates. Bormann stopped taking notes and fixed Dönitz with a stare that had preceded numerous trips to concentration camps. Admiral, are you suggesting that our intelligence services have been systematically wrong? Keitel, ever the loyal military sycophant, seized the opportunity to demonstrate reliability. Mein Führer, perhaps American claims about production are exaggerated propaganda designed to discourage our U-boat operations. Hitler nodded approvingly. Precisely, Field Marshal. The Americans want us to believe they can outproduce us. They want us to surrender to mathematical impossibilities rather than fighting with German determination. Dönitz realized the meeting's outcome had been predetermined. Facts would not change minds committed to ideology. Statistics would not overcome beliefs rooted in racial theory. Mein Führer, I respectfully request permission to prepare alternative naval strategies based on these intelligence assessments. Hitler's response was ice-cold and final. Admiral Dönitz, you will continue U-boat operations as planned. American production claims are propaganda. German submarines will sink enemy vessels faster than they can be replaced. That is an order. The meeting ended with handshakes and Heil Hitlers, but Dönitz walked away knowing he had witnessed the moment when Nazi ideology chose comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. The Third Reich would continue fighting a war it had already lost mathematically. Outside the Reich Chancellery, Snow began falling on Berlin, covering the rubble with white silence. Reality had been rejected in favor of ideology. Operation Drumbeat began at 4:27 in the morning on January 13, 1942, when Korvettenkapitän Reinhard Hardigan's U-123 fired the first torpedo at British tanker Cyclops off Cape Cod. Admiral Dönitz had planned the assault on American shipping based on intelligence estimates that predicted limited merchant vessel replacement capacity. The mathematics seemed favorable. Sink American merchant ships faster than they could be built, force Britain to starve, win the war through strategic strangulation. What Dönitz couldn't have predicted was that American Liberty ship production would transform his carefully calculated operation into a mathematical impossibility. By June 1942, German U-boats had sunk over 400 Allied merchant vessels off the American coast. The tonnage figures initially supported Dönitz's strategic assumptions. British supply convoys were arriving with fewer ships, reduced cargo capacity, and longer intervals between deliveries. German naval intelligence celebrated the apparent success. Then, the Liberty ships began arriving in numbers that defied every German calculation. Korvettenkapitän Erich Topp, commanding U-552 inches the North Atlantic, transmitted the first reports of impossible convoy sizes in August 1942. Enemy convoy HX-205 consists of 63 merchant vessels, Topp reported via encrypted radio. Previous intelligence indicated maximum convoy size of 35 vessels. German naval intelligence initially dismissed Topp's reports as counting errors or misidentification of escort vessels as merchant ships. Traditional convoy operations rarely exceeded 40 vessels due to organizational complexity and limited merchant ship availability. 63 ships suggested either mistaken observation or fundamental changes in Allied shipping capacity. Additional reports from U-boat commanders across the Atlantic painted a consistent picture of expanding convoy sizes, increased shipping frequency, and merchant vessel numbers that exceeded all German projections. Korvettenkapitän Heinrich Lehmann-Willenbrock reported convoy SC-107 containing 59 merchant vessels. Kapitänleutnant Siegfried von Forstner counted 47 ships in convoy ONS 144. The psychological impact on German submarine crews was devastating. They had entered the war believing they were fighting a mathematical battle they could win through superior tactics and determination. Sink enough enemy ships, and the enemy would run out of ships. Simple arithmetic would deliver German victory. Instead, German submariners found themselves facing an endless stream of replacement vessels that suggested American industrial capacity far exceeding their strategic assumptions. Every merchant ship sunk was replaced by 2 or 3 new vessels within weeks rather than months. Oberleutnant Zur C. Wolfgang Luth, one of Germany's most successful U-boat commanders, transmitted increasingly desperate assessments from his patrol area. Enemy shipping appears unlimited. Luth reported in September 1942. Merchant vessels arrive in convoy formations exceeding previous maximum estimates. German naval headquarters faced an intelligence crisis that challenged their entire strategic framework. Either their U-boat commanders were systematically misreporting enemy shipping numbers, or American merchant vessel production exceeded every German estimate by factors that made submarine warfare mathematically impossible. Captain Günther Hessler, Dönitz's son-in-law and chief strategic analyst, attempted to reconcile U-boat reports with existing intelligence estimates. His calculations revealed the scope of German strategic miscalculation. If U-boat patrol reports are accurate, Hessler concluded, American merchant vessel production exceeds our sinking capacity by ratios of 3-1. The tonnage war had become a war of industrial capacity, and Germany was losing catastrophically. German U-boats were sinking approximately 60,000 tons of Allied merchant shipping monthly at enormous cost in submarines, trained crews, and strategic resources. American shipyards were launching over 200,000 tons of merchant shipping monthly, with production rates increasing. Korvettenkapitän Otto Kretschmer, Germany's leading submarine ace, provided the most devastating assessment. "We are no longer sinking ships faster than the enemy can replace them." Kretschmer reported in November 1942, "Enemy convoy sizes suggest merchant vessel availability approaching unlimited capacity." The mathematical reality was inescapable. Operation Drumbeat had been planned to exploit perceived American industrial weakness. Instead, it had revealed American industrial strength that made German submarine warfare strategically irrelevant. Every torpedo fired, every merchant ship sunk, every U-boat lost was contributing to a tactical campaign that could not achieve strategic victory. By December 1942, German submarine operations had shifted from offensive strategic campaigns to defensive tactical actions. U-boats that had once hunted Allied convoys now struggled to survive increasingly effective anti-submarine warfare while facing endless replacement targets. The Battle of the Atlantic had become a mathematical equation that Germany could not solve through military action. American Liberty ships were arriving faster than German torpedoes could sink them. Industrial democracy was defeating military authoritarianism through the simple expedient of building more ships than submarines could destroy. Operation Drumbeat had revealed the fatal flaw in German strategic planning, underestimating American industrial capacity. The war would not be won by sinking existing ships, but by preventing the construction of replacement vessels. Germany lacked the capability to do either. Mathematical reality had doomed Operation Drumbeat before the first torpedo was fired. German intelligence had been accurate about American weakness in 1941, but catastrophically wrong about American strength in 1942. The tide had turned, and Liberty ships were carrying Allied victory across the Atlantic faster than German submarines could stop them. By March 1943, the mathematical reality of American Liberty ship production had transformed the Battle of the Atlantic from a contest of tactical skill into an industrial death spiral for the German Navy. Admiral Dönitz stared at statistics that revealed the collapse of his strategic assumptions. American shipyards were launching Liberty ships faster than his U-boats could find targets to sink. The numbers told a story of industrial warfare that German naval doctrine had never contemplated. In January 1943, German submarines had sunk 47 Allied merchant vessels totaling 237,000 tons. In the same month, American shipyards had launched 93 Liberty ships totaling 621,000 tons of new merchant capacity. For every ton of shipping German U-boats destroyed, American industry created nearly 3 tons of replacement capacity. Korvettenkapitän Adalbert Schnee, commanding U-201 inches the North Atlantic, transmitted reports that captured the psychological impact of facing unlimited enemy resources. Convoy HX 229 consisted of 41 merchant vessels, Schnee reported in March 1943. After sinking 3 ships, remaining convoy continued with 38 vessels. Within 72 hours, replacement convoy ONS-5 appeared with 44 merchant vessels. German U-boat crews had entered the war, believing they were the hunters in a maritime campaign that would starve Britain into submission. By spring 1943, they had become the hunted, pursued by increasingly sophisticated anti-submarine warfare while facing convoys that seemed to multiply despite their attacks. The psychological transformation was devastating for submarine morale. Oberleutnant Herbert Werner, serving aboard U-230, described the growing futility in his patrol log. "We sink ships that are replaced before we can reload torpedoes. We attack convoys that grow larger despite our successes. We fight an enemy whose industrial capacity makes our tactical victories strategically meaningless." Captain Gunther Hessler's strategic analysis painted an even bleaker picture for German naval operations. His calculations revealed that American Liberty ship production had achieved rates that made German submarine warfare counterproductive. Current American merchant vessel production exceeds our maximum possible sinking capacity by factors approaching 4 to 1. Hessler reported to Dönitz in April 1943. The tonnage war had become an equation that Germany could not balance. German U-boat construction required 18 months per vessel and consumed resources equivalent to building 15 Panzer tanks. American Liberty ship construction required 18 days per vessel and consumed surplus industrial capacity. Worse still, German submarine losses were accelerating while American shipbuilding was expanding. In March 1943, Germany lost 21 U-boats to enemy action while American shipyards launched 107 Liberty ships. The mathematics of attrition warfare had inverted. Germany was losing submarines faster than they could build them, while America was building merchant ships faster than Germany could sink them. Korvettenkapitän Horst von Schroeter, commanding U-123, provided the most stark assessment in his final patrol report before being killed in action in May 1943. Enemy merchant shipping now arrives in such quantities that individual U-boat attacks have no measurable impact on overall Allied logistics capacity. The Battle of the Atlantic had revealed the fundamental truth about modern warfare. Industrial capacity determined strategic outcomes more decisively than tactical brilliance. German submarine crews possessed superior training, advanced technology, and exceptional individual skill, but they could not overcome American industrial mathematics. By May 1943, the turning point had become irreversible. Admiral Dönitz withdrew U-boats from North Atlantic operations, acknowledging that continuing attacks achieved no strategic purpose while consuming irreplaceable submarines and crews. The decision represented the first time in German military history that naval operations had been suspended due to enemy industrial superiority. American Liberty ships had won the Battle of the Atlantic not through superior seamanship, but through sheer numerical overwhelming of German capacity to sink them. Democracy's industrial chaos had outproduced authoritarianism's military precision by margins that made resistance mathematically impossible. The tide had turned permanently. Liberty ships now crossed the Atlantic in convoys so large that German submarines could sink dozens of vessels without affecting Allied logistics capacity. Mathematical reality had proven more decisive than military skill. The war was being won in American shipyards, faster than it could be lost on the Atlantic Ocean. The verdict was clear. America was building victory one Liberty ship at a time, 72 hours at a time, faster than Germany could comprehend or counter. The interrogation room in Nuremberg prison was grey and cold on October 23, 1945, when American intelligence officer Colonel James Patterson sat across from Admiral Karl Dönitz, the man who had commanded the German submarine fleet through its rise and catastrophic fall. The questions about German intelligence failures were just beginning. "Admiral," Patterson began, opening a thick folder containing captured German naval documents. "We need to understand how your intelligence services could have been so completely wrong about American industrial capacity. Your agents provided accurate reports about Liberty ship production as early as October 1942. Why weren't these reports believed?" Dönitz, still wearing his naval uniform despite imprisonment, studied the documents Patterson spread across the metal table. Photographs of Kaiser's Richmond shipyard, statistical analyses from Captain Weiss, intelligence reports from Agent Steinberg, all the evidence that had been ignored or suppressed. "Colonel Patterson," Dönitz replied carefully, "our intelligence was not wrong. Our leadership's willingness to believe intelligence that contradicted our worldview was non-existent." Patterson pulled out a captured transcript of the January 15, 1943 briefing at the Reich Chancellery. According to this document, you personally presented photographic evidence proving American Liberty ship production exceeded German estimates by factors of 10 to 20. Hitler's response was to order continuation of submarine operations unchanged. Colonel, you must understand that Nazi Germany operated on ideological assumptions that could not be challenged by mathematical facts. To accept that American democracy could outproduce German authoritarianism was to accept that our entire political system was inferior. Patterson consulted his notes from captured German naval intelligence files. Admiral, we have documented proof that German agents provided accurate intelligence about Liberty ship production rates from 17 independent sources. Swedish engineers, Spanish diplomats, Portuguese businessmen, Argentine shipping officials. Every report confirmed the same production figures. Impossible by our assumptions, Colonel, but not impossible in reality. We had designed our submarine strategy based on the premise that American merchant vessel production would remain limited by traditional methods. We never conceived that Henry Kaiser could revolutionize maritime construction through mass production techniques. Patterson read from Agent Steinberg's final report from Richmond shipyard. Your agent reported that Kaiser's facilities employed women, minorities, and elderly workers achieving production rates that exceeded German theoretical maximums using workforce demographics your doctrine considered inferior. Dönitz nodded grimly. Colonel, acting upon that intelligence would have required admitting that Nazi racial theory was fundamentally wrong. That democratic diversity created strength rather than weakness. No Nazi official would risk their life making such admissions. The American officer produced statistical analyses prepared by German naval intelligence comparing U-boat sinking rates with American shipbuilding capacity. The numbers were devastating. German submarines were achieving tactical successes while losing the strategic battle through mathematical inevitability. Admiral, your own analysts calculated that American Liberty ship production made submarine warfare strategically impossible by December 1942. Why weren't U-boat operations suspended earlier? Because suspending operations would have required Hitler to acknowledge that American industrial capacity exceeded German military capability. This would have meant admitting the war was unwinnable, which was politically impossible. Patterson leaned forward. Are you claiming that German leadership continued submarine operations they knew were strategically hopeless for purely political reasons? Colonel, German leadership continued submarine operations because accepting American industrial superiority would have collapsed the entire ideological foundation of Nazi Germany. They preferred comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. The interrogation revealed the systematic failure of Nazi Germany to process intelligence that contradicted ideological assumptions. German agents had provided accurate, detailed reports about American Liberty ship production. German analysts had calculated strategic implications correctly. German leadership had simply refused to believe intelligence that challenged their worldview. Captain Heinrich Weber, the photo analyst who had confirmed the authenticity of aerial photographs showing Kaiser's shipyard operations, testified at his war crimes trial about willful ignorance. We provided accurate intelligence that could have shortened the war by 2 years. Our leadership chose ideology over mathematics. Colonel Patterson's final report to Supreme Allied Command concluded, German intelligence failure regarding American Liberty ship production represents the most consequential rejection of accurate intelligence in modern military history. The failure was not in intelligence gathering, but in intelligence acceptance. The post-war interrogations revealed the complete scope of the intelligence disaster. German agents had accurately reported American production capacity, workforce transformation, and technological innovation. German analysts had correctly calculated strategic implications. German leadership had rejected mathematical reality in favor of ideological fantasy. The final accounting was devastating. American shipyards had produced 2,710 Liberty ships during the war, with Kaiser's facilities alone launching 1,490 vessels. German intelligence had predicted this production accurately. History's verdict was clear. The Third Reich had died not from lack of intelligence, but from inability to accept intelligence that contradicted comfortable myths. The final ledger of World War II's greatest intelligence failure was written not in blood, but in statistics that spoke louder than any battlefield victory. When the accounting was complete, the numbers revealed the mathematical precision with which American industrial democracy had destroyed German military authoritarianism through the simple expedient of building ships faster than submarines could sink them. 2,710 Liberty ships launched from American shipyards between 1942 and 1945. German intelligence had predicted this production with stunning accuracy as early as December 1942. German leadership had believed none of it, preferring comfortable mythology to uncomfortable mathematics. The human cost of this willful blindness was staggering. Admiral Dönitz's continued U-boat operations, launched despite knowing they were strategically hopeless, cost Germany 39,000 submarine crew members killed in action. These were not deaths in service of victory, but sacrifices to ideology that refused to acknowledge mathematical reality. American Liberty ship construction achieved production rates that redefined industrial warfare forever. Henry Kaiser's Richmond Shipyard No. 2 alone launched 885 Liberty ships, more than the entire German merchant marine possessed at the war's beginning. What German racial theory declared impossible, American democratic diversity had accomplished with assembly line precision. The workforce demographics that Nazi doctrine proclaimed inferior had outproduced German master craftsmen by margins that shattered every assumption of authoritarian efficiency. Women comprised 38% of Liberty ship workers. Minorities comprised 24%. Workers over age 55 comprised 19%. Instead of chaos, this democratically diverse workforce achieved production miracles that German engineering doctrine considered physically impossible. The average Liberty ship required 14,000 man-hours to complete, compared to 36,000 man-hours for equivalent German merchant vessels. The technological revolution Kaiser pioneered transformed not just American shipbuilding, but global manufacturing forever. Prefabrication techniques developed for Liberty ship construction would reshape automotive, aircraft, and construction industries in the post-war era. But the most profound impact was philosophical rather than technological. Liberty ship production had proven that democratic chaos could outproduce authoritarian order, that diversity created strength rather than weakness, that freedom generated efficiency rather than waste. German military analysts, writing their post-war assessments, acknowledged the scope of their strategic miscalculation. General Franz Halder, former chief of the German Army General Staff, wrote in his memoirs, "We planned for a war against the America of 1939. We found ourselves fighting the America of 1943, an industrial giant we had neither anticipated nor prepared to combat." The intelligence failure carried lessons that transcended military strategy. When ideology becomes more important than evidence, when comfortable beliefs matter more than uncomfortable facts, the consequences become inevitable and catastrophic. German spies had counted every Liberty ship launched, timed every production milestone, calculated every strategic implication. Their intelligence was accurate, comprehensive, and systematically ignored by leadership that preferred myth to mathematics. The Third Reich died not from lack of information, but from inability to process information that challenged core beliefs. American industrial democracy had won the Battle of the Atlantic, not through superior tactics, but through superior production. Liberty ships crossed the ocean in numbers that made German resistance mathematically impossible. By war's end, Allied merchant tonnage exceeded German submarine capacity by ratios approaching 10-1. The final irony was that German intelligence had predicted this outcome accurately. Agent reports, photographic evidence, statistical analyses, and mathematical projections had all pointed to the same conclusion. American Liberty ship production would make German submarine warfare strategically irrelevant. The verdict of history remains clear. Accurate intelligence means nothing if leadership lacks the courage to believe uncomfortable truths. Reality does not negotiate with ideology. Mathematics does not yield to mythology. Truth ignored becomes tragedy. Liberty ships had carried more than cargo across the Atlantic. They had transported proof that democracy works, that diversity strengthens, that freedom produces results authoritarianism cannot match. German spies had counted every ship, but German leaders had believed none of them. The numbers never lied. The leadership simply refused to listen.